Hi and welcome to this tutorial on how to design casual sunglasses. My name is William Kenton and I'll be designing a pair of casual sunglasses in the Autodesk Fusion 360 software. And I'll specifically be designing a pair of sunglasses for 3D printing using the SLS 3D printer with the nylon material. I've made a new project called Casual Sunglasses and I will save my file within that project. As any other design project, starting off with CAD is not usually a good idea. I prefer to do sketching on paper and gradually increasing the complexity by drawing in Illustrator. And so this is what I've done. I've created some reference pictures that I will now import into the project. So by pressing Insert and clicking on the face, I can then select an image and then insert the file. This is quite a small image, so I think I should probably scale it up 10 times. Okay. Up in the right hand corner you have the view cube. I'll press on the right view and I can then open up. As you see, my image is then placed within the canvases. So I'll right click and I'll calibrate the size to make sure that it's the right size. And I know that the total width should be around 150 millimeters, which is pretty good. Now if you don't have the right size, you can then write in the right dimension. I've got some other pictures, so I'll insert them as well. I'll insert another image from the side. And I might have to do a bit of revolving. I'll then also flip the side and I can scale that up 10 times. That's better. Now, looking at it from an isometrical point of view, I can see that they're not aligned. Now, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'll finish off with the top view and then I'll change it afterwards. I'll insert my top view and I'll scale that up 10 times as well. And then I'll revolve it 90 degrees. Okay. Now, if we look at it through an isometrical perspective, we can see that they're not correctly aligned. So what I'll do now is that I'll go in and I'll change them. So, taking the side view, you can go in and you can edit the canvas as such. Now this can be a bit tricky because when you look at it from the side you can't see the front view, and when you're looking at it from a perspective it's not that easy. So I'll try to give a rough aligning from the side, and I'll do the same from the top. So right clicking on the image under canvases and then edit the canvas. And I'll place that so that the nose is coincident with the front. Now this program likes to snap, so it likes to do incremental distances. So you've got to zoom in if you want it correctly. I'll press OK, and this is pretty good. I'll make sure that the line here is correct. I think it looks pretty good. Now there's one more thing that we need, reference, which is our sphere. As you can see from the side of these glasses, you can see that there is a slight curvature here, and the same on the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a sphere around one of the eyes, which will be the basis on which to draw the actual frame. So I'll go into Create and I'll make a sphere which will be placed on the top layer. I'll press down and I'll write 1/9 of a meter times 2. Now I happen to have a lens that has this curvature, and so I'll use that as a basis for the glasses. This will typically be a casual lens glass. I press OK, and what I want to do now is I want to move the sphere so that it fits in with the curvature. I'll right click the sphere, press it, and I'll start moving it around so that it fits in with my curvature. And as you can see, we're dealing with approximates here, so I'm not gonna take care of this straight away. I won't bother with that. But what I will bother with is making sure that the sphere is placed a bit upwards. As you can see, typically glasses will won't have a 90-degree angle from the side, and that's because as human beings, we usually look down on the ground and not up in the sky. So the sphere will then be placed above the center line, the horizontal center line of the side view of the pair of glasses. And I'll make sure to place the sphere behind the reference plane, the canvas, the front canvas. We can have a look at it from the side and the front, and it looks pretty good. So now we'll start making the actual faces, and what we're going to do is we're going to make individual faces, snapping them onto the sphere on one side, and then we're going to make a duplicate. So I'll press Create Form, and I'll scroll in, I'll go into Create Face, make sure that I've got the snap on, and I'll actually just start from here. I'll make sure that I prefer not to have the incremental move. If I place it up a bit, you can see that there is something called incremental move, and I prefer to have that off, as well as snap to grid. I prefer not to have that on. So I'll start up here, and what I want to do is I want to make a face which is approximately, I'd say, 1.5 centimeters wide, and it will be shorter around the edges. I'll press Modify, so we've now made our basic face. So if we look at that face, you can now see that it's placed on the sphere, which is good. This is what we want. But for the rest of this exercise, this first part, I'll be looking at it from a front view, because what I want to do is I want to generate new faces all around based on that edge, and I want it to snap onto the sphere. So I've pressed modify, I'll press edge, and before I do anything I just want to make sure that I've got my object snap on, and I want it to be in world view. I'll press it, and what happens is that it will automatically snap on to the sphere in the background. So to make a new face, it's very important that you hold down your Alt button. Because if I don't hold down the Alt button, I'll just move the line. I'll demonstrate this by just not holding down anything and moving my line. Nothing happened. It's the same. I'm just moving the same face. But if I hold down the Alt button and I drag, you can see that I've now made a new face. And as you can see, there is a new line. So I'm going to be doing this around the whole object, and I'll link them up in the end, and then I'll make new faces for the outer edge of the sunglasses and also the bridge above the nose. And note that what I do is, as the thickness of this object becomes slimmer around the edges, I'll scale it down a bit. And I'm moving them in a pretty even, making new faces in even increments. And I'll also be rotating them a bit so that the line goes in towards the center of the glass. This will make it easier later on when I model. I'll turn it around. And as you can see, I'm making smaller increments around the edges. Scale that up a bit. So just to demonstrate, by actually rotating around, we can see that I'm not generating faces on a plane. I'm generating them on the actual sphere. Now I recommend you to try to make the curvature, to make a nice smooth curvature from the beginning. It's usually a bit more difficult to go back and change it because I'm incrementally increasing the size. So of course you could go in afterwards and try to to change the shape, but it's usually a bit more demanding. Now, as you can see, this gumball, as you can call it, the pivot, is actually placed outside of the line, and you can realign it by pressing the set pivot and pressing on the line and just pressing done, and you'll place it back. And I'll just finish up there by going in on Modify, pressing Merge Edge, and I'll select, I've automatically selected the first group, and I'll now select the second group, and I'll just press OK. Just to verify, we can see that we've now made this ribbon around the sphere. And looking at it from the side, we can see that we have actually made it around. So it's not actually hitting there. It has a slight more curved surface, but that's okay for now. Okay, so going back in the front view, I want to make this extension over here, so I'll go back in Modify, make sure that I've selected Edge, and I'll select 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. I'll increase them a bit because I can see that they didn't actually hit the line properly, and I'll drag out, holding down the Alt button. I'll make another set of faces, and I can also move them. And what I'll do now is I actually want to view this t-spline as a box model, because I'm changing the appearance of the faces, and it's easier for me sometimes to go in and display them as a box, and I'll do that by just pressing somewhere on the shape and going into selection options in Modify and just pressing display mode box display. And now what I can do is I can see how the shapes are actually placed without the soft smooth curvatures. So I want to make another, this is a slightly complex area. I want to remove that face, and I'll just press it and press delete. So we now have 3 sides to this face. I want to drag that face down, and I also want to drag some of these vertices independently, because for me right now it seems easier just to move one vertex at a time. And then I'll go in, I'll press edge, and I'll make a nice last group of faces by holding down the L button, and I can rotate them, and I can even scale them down so that the line becomes sharper, and also scaling it down from here. That is a nice finish. We can now view it as a smooth display, and we can see that we have some lines here that don't exactly follow. But what I'll do is I'll go in to vertex mode, and I'll just make sure, as you can see, there are lots of red boxes, so these are handles for each vertex, and you can lock those handles by selecting all of them and just pressing the link tangent handle, and they'll become green, and we'll see if something changed, which it didn't. So I'll go back to this vertex and I'll just place it a bit up. Now when we apply thickness to this model, it will probably change its appearance again, and we can make that into a smooth edge. Okay, so we've got one more set of faces to generate. I'll just zoom into the bridge, and I'll go back into edge mode. I think what I want to do is I want to make 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. So I'll select these 4 edges, and I'll just drag out from holding down the Alt button, which somehow gave me a mysterious outcome, so I'll do that again. Holding down the Alt button, I can try even dragging the arrow, and I'll just scale them down slightly, because what I want to make another 4 faces, and I want them to be aligned to that red line you can see here, and I want them to be totally straight. So I'll just start scaling them down a bit, and I can go back to box mode and you can see what's going on. It's a bit easier. So clearly for me, working with vertices seems like a good idea, and I'll place them, try to distribute them evenly around. So that no edges seem too sharp. That is the handle, we don't want to play with that. And in fact what I'll do is I'll remove that vertex by just going out of modify, pressing it and deleting it. And I'll go like that. And I'll select 3 edges, and I'll hold down the Alt button again, and I'll drag out the remaining 3 faces, and I'll just scale them down in the Y direction, and I'll write 0 in the dialog box that appears, and it should be perfectly straight. And just to make sure that when I make my duplicate group, I'll just place it slightly outside the line, so later on I'll merge the edges. Let's look at it from smooth display. I'll just want to move that vertex a bit, and I'll make sure that I've got a nice curvature here, because this is a detail that I want to emphasize on my glasses. Okay, so we've now finished this first half. I want to now make a duplicate or a symmetry. I'll press OK. I'll just make sure my shape looks alright. And I'll press mirror duplicate. So first off, I'll select the t-spline body. And then what I want to do is I want to select, as a mirror plane, I want to select this plane. And you can see that we get a preview of how the other side will look like. But there is a slight gap, so this weld won't have any purpose. We can just leave it on, and I'll just press OK. But what we want to do now is we want to go in and actually weld or merge the edges together. So I'll double click on one side, having selected the first group, and then I'll double click again on the other side, and I'll just press OK. And what you can see now is that we're left with a green line between the two shapes, which is shows us that we have symmetry. So I'll now hide my other canvases, and I'll just rotate around, and you can now see that we have a nice, almost, well, it is symmetric, but it goes slightly in here. We'll change that later on. You can see that because the sphere is not centered, it goes slightly inwards. But what we want to do is we want to play around with this shape later on anyway, so this is good for now.